Hi, and welcome to the DIY Photo Organizing podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I'm Chantal from Photos in Order.
And I'm Fiona from Photo Helper. Hi, Chantal.
Hi there, how are you?
Hi. Good. And we are so fortunate to have a beautiful guest with us today, who is actually our very first podcast guest. I'm not sure if you remember that, Haleh, but
Oh,
it's Haleh Shoa from Picturely. Hi, Haleh.
hi, ladies. Thank you so much
Hi.
for having me back.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. So look, we're really excited about this podcast today. We are also recording a video. So for those of you that haven't seen us do a little video version of our podcast for a while, this is such a relevant topic to be recording on, with visual as well as audio. So if you can pop over and jump into the link in the show notes and watch on YouTube. If not, we have recording the screenshots, so you can download those and have a look at what it is that we're talking about, and or just listen and think, close your eyes and be creative. So there's lots of options for you today. So the topic today is going to be talking about photo walls and galleries. This is an area that we talk about in our golden rule number 5, where we talk about doing something with your photos, which is the whole point of being able to organize, save, back up, so that we can actually enjoy them. And photo walls and galleries is a beautiful way to be able to do that. But the big question is how do we do that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we brought in the expert in this area. Haleh has designed and created a lot of photo walls, and today she's going to share some of her wisdom and tips with us so that it can just give you a really practical example of how you might be able to do this for yourself. And imagine a wall in your own home, and then follow along. So really, without further ado, we would love to say welcome, Haleh, and if you can introduce sort of your background, a bit about your passion behind this, and then we'll ask some questions along the way about it.
That's great. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to share my knowledge with your viewers and listeners. This is an important topic, as you know, we try and come up with so many different ways for our clients to enjoy their memories. It's one thing for us to talk about backing them up, which is super important, but then how do we really enjoy it on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis? And I think designing a gallery wall with your photos is such an important aspect of enjoying our photos. Yeah, I started Picturely in 2016, and it started really from the love of my own archiving my own family photos, which I'm still not done with, but don't tell anyone. And my family, I'm Iranian, and my family left Iran during the Iranian Revolution, and they were basically left with the shirts on their back and 3 suitcases of memories. And those memories became sort of the gateway to my history and my stories, my family stories. And as I had a little bit of slow time while I worked in advertising, I would take those photo albums into work and start scanning them and sharing them with my family globally. And it just spread so much joy in my family that I thought, well, maybe this can be a business. And of course, 8 years later and 6 employees in, we are a thriving studio in Los Angeles, and we have clients globally. And a huge part of our business is the design aspect. So the gallery wall arts and the photo books and the montages and everything else. So I'm happy to be discussing this topic today.
Fantastic. That's so great. Thanks for that background. I love really getting the heart behind why people do this business, and it's so varied, and yet there's a really common thread through that, and that is this, you know, love for what has been and the connection that we have to that through photos. So one of the biggest questions to start with that I would love to ask is, where should people if they're going to create a wall, where in the home is the best place to put a photo wall?
Really hard to answer that question because it just depends on where it pulls you. So when I am working with clients, you know, a lot of times they go, well, we have so many walls all over the house. And if it's a brand new home to them, I advise for them to get settled. So I don't work with people who haven't lived in a space for less than 6 months. I really suggest you grounding yourself in your home and feeling the energy of and the flow of where you want to put the TV, where everything else goes, right? Sometimes you think you're going to put the couch a certain way, but then you start experiencing your life in that home and the couch goes on an entirely a different wall. And so so it really depends on where they want to enjoy it. The example I'm going to show today is a gallery wall of a client's entryway, and there's 4 different walls that we did for a client. There actually 5. There's 2 walls in her bedroom, and there's 3 walls in the entry and towards the living room. And you know, the client really wanted to get she's an older client, she's in her mid 80s, and she and her husband had traveled globally. So it was really she drove as to where the photos went.
Right.
You know, and of course, like I came in and I zhuzhed it all up at and which we'll get to what that means, but so it's really depending on where you want to enjoy it, right? So it could be in the living room, it could be in a family room. If there's kids, and kids love looking at their own photos, it could be in the kids' playing room, and so that question, it depends.
It varies, yeah. All right. So how do we choose photos? Do you want to start and show us, like, as far as the orientation and sizing, and do you start to look at the photos first, or do you start to think about the design first?
Yeah, I think the design is you first choose the wall, right? So let's say you're doing a children's playing room, and for that I would suggest not only having their photos but their children's art. So even if it's not great children's art, I think that we can honor the things that they're creating. And there are frames out there where you can actually put a children's art and then open it up and put another one on top of that. So it has space in the frame. They're really great. Those are really wonderful. So start with the artwork. And then, so when you figure out where those frames go, and then we can sort of say, okay, we can put photos, and the photos can be a bunch of little photos, so we can make a collage of the little photos, or they can be sort of large photos that match the artwork, right? So you could say, we're going to put 3 pieces of artwork and we'll put 2 large photos in the middle of them to frame them in that regard. So it depends on what else is in the room, and it depends on the decor of the room and the style of the client as well. But I would always start with the artwork. For example, this particular client had large mask collection, so we started with her masks, and then we fit the photos in the middle of the masks, which I'll show.
So
Fantastic.
it's not just about photos necessarily. It can be all sort of exhibits, so to speak. It can be, you know, it doesn't have to be square or rectangle. It can be masks, like you said, or other sort of artwork. Yeah,
that's right. There could be memorabilia, there could be accomplishments, They could be, you know, we have families whose members were in the war and they want to honor them with the badges of their grandfather who's no longer with us. So we frame that in the wall. It just depends on what it is. And if you're doing a wall of ancestors, you know, you want to include their memorabilia. If you're doing a wall with children, you want to include their children art. Now, you don't have to include anything other than photographs, but I think it gives it, when we have artwork and photographs, it just gives it that depth, and it allows us to be able to change out the photographs and still enjoy the artwork.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I
that
like
idea.
that. Yeah, so and I know you're going to show us some things. When it comes to, you know, I think one of the questions that I guess I asked myself, so this is maybe a personal question, but frames or no frames in your photos? Like canvas to the edge? Do you, you know, visually when you're looking at a piece, at a design like this, where do you sort of sit with that?
Once again, I will say that it depends.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to let the sort of the pieces speak for themselves. And sometimes you may want to include a lot on a wall, like this particular client wanted to really pack the wall in. So we did frameless. And also because she had masks, she had purses, you know, she had so many memorabilias from her travels that those sort of were the fillers and the frames, if you will. So for this particular client, there's only 2 photos that I ended up framing, which I'll show you guys. And I'll show you why, because I wanted it sort of matted and I wanted them to really pop from everything else. But it again, it depends. And I think negative space is really, really important. So if we have a lot of different sort of lot of dark frames, you know, if you are going to be framing, I would suggest having the same size photos in the same frame, so you have some continuity on the wall. Otherwise, it can be a little bit of a mishmash. Having said that, sometimes you want to put up frames that were your great grandmothers or grandmothers, and then sort of work around that. So it depends on the client's tastes as well. So it depends on their decor. A lot of times, the inspiration comes from their decor. If they're minimalists, we certainly will probably just use matted photographs, white on white. But if they're more of a traditionalist, we will probably end up framing some of their artwork and their photographs as well.
And I assume sometimes you would put memorabilia possibly in shadow boxes. Do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Shadow boxes are great.
All right, so let's talk practical. Can you jump into your screen share for us and show us some things?
So I use a program called Canva. It's an online program that sort of allows you to come up with the size. And what I'm going to be showing you guys today is I design things as if you're looking at the wall. So that's called elevation. So we're going to be looking at the elevation of the walls. And then I'll show you some things, and then I'll also show you the install as well. And just to note that the Canva that I use is a pro account, which I believe is around $120 a year. I use Canva on a daily basis for so many different things, but to me, it's worth its weight. I would pay that monthly. Maybe we should cut that out.
Don't tell Canva that.
Don't tell Canva that. So this particular client, I was called in by a home organizer, and she had about 45 years of travels with her husband. And they just called us in. They were moving and they wanted us to take these photos. I'm gonna really zoom in so you guys can see. It's these types of photos that she went all over the world. She went to Africa, And these photos have been sitting in these frames for about 40 to 60 years, depending on where they had gone. And a lot of them were really degraded, and they'd lost their fervor, they'd lost their life. And so we basically, what they were asking us to do is just take these photos off the wall, excuse me, take them out of the frame and just scan them. So in this room in the right, there's a room here. And when I went into that room, I saw a huge wall of so many masks. And she got super excited. She says, yes, I have a lot of masks. And I said, well, why don't we design a gallery wall for your new space? And she was very excited. I did not give them 6 months to settle in because she was 1,000,000% sure she wanted these masks on the wall and her photos around them. So, and the way we start is when I go on an install, I went into their house. I basically measured the height of the room, and you want to take exact measurements, and the width of the wall. And like this was, for example, this was a smoke detector that was on the wall. I even measured that. I measured how far off the ceiling it was and everything. This was a doorway. And initially I thought maybe I'll put something even on the doorway because she has so many masks. So for this particular client, my client was 5'8". And so I put a picture of a lady in there, and I did it proportionally of a 5'8" woman, so she could see when she walks in how she's gonna, where the masks sort of hit her eye level. And I decided to do all the pictures except 2 that were frameless. As you could see, these masks, these 2 particular masks were very, very large. So, and they have a lot of depth to them. So for me to frame, it would just be too much for the eye, you know. So I sort of decided to frame the photos, if you will, with the masks.
Yeah, I
So
see.
these were and I used Miller's, which is a company that is based in the United States. I have no idea if they send globally, but they do these hard sort of set sizes, and they're really hard, almost like mounted on styrene, that you could just punch some pins in the wall and you could just set them right into the pins. So it's really easy to install them, and they have a set amount of sizes, which made decision making really easy. So this was the 11x17, this was the 11x11, and these were 5x5s. And so when we did the install, as you could see, it was pretty exact to what I had designed. So we take prints of what we designed, and so we use that to be able, for us to be able to put everything on the wall. Now, when we got to this install, many of the masks had broken. So what you may see on my design may not match what was on the wall. So the 2 frames that I decided to, the 2 photos that I decided to frame were this one of her underwater, which she thought that, I love this photo so much, and I'm gonna go in here because it's so architectural. It looks like a piece of artwork for me. And she didn't even think that we'd scan this, but I just love this photo so much, and it's so colorful as well.
Looks
So we
amazing.
ended up, yeah. So we ended up framing this in white, and we also ended up framing this to match it over here in white, this one, of them being in Taj Mahal. So they both had large white frames, and I chose white because, again, I wanted it to have a little bit of depth, but I didn't want it to overtake. So that's why I decided to frame it in white. And I thought I had a picture of that somewhere, but anyways, so some of these ended up moving around because some of these masks were broken. So we had to kind of make it up as we go along, essentially.
Yeah. So did you scan the masks there? How did you get that in Canva?
That's a really good question. I will actually show you. In Canva, you could take a photo and you can hit edit photo, and you could hit background remover,
Oh,
and
right.
it just removes the background.
Yep.
And that way we were able to put it over here.
So you
And
could see visually what it's going to look like rather than just putting a photo, that you've taken it on the carpet or something.
yeah, so we
That's
put everything on
great.
a white table.
Yep.
And we took photos of all of these were her masks from the wall I was describing.
Yep.
So, and then I had measurements of everything. So I had exact measurements. So the height that you see here is proportionate to the height that was, that was this, the purse that was hanging.
Yep.
And then all of these were to the size of what the manufacturer can produce. So, and then, so the legwork is quite a bit. So if you do have masks in this case, you want to take pictures of them, then you import them into Canva. And basically you use the edit feature, edit photo. And once you click on the edit photo, you could hit on my screen, the BG remover is the first thing that shows up under the FX effects.
And
So
this is actually a paid feature. You need to pay for that. On a free plan, you don't have that yet.
Okay, yeah. So
think.
anything that has the what do you call it? A little crown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a paid feature. So I mean, again, if you do want to use Canva, I think this is great. Now, I use Canva because I'm not at the clients, but people who are doing their own, what I would recommend is actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. What I recommend is in their home, basically doing a sort of, those blue painter tapes, put a blue painter tape and the size of the wall that you want to go on, right? So put it on the somewhere on the floor. You can even do this outside if it's not raining, obviously. But so you want to measure the wall and put the blue tapes around where everything's going to go. Then you can start putting the items that you want to put on the wall just on the floor. And then this way you can sort of visualize how it may look if, if we were to just put it on the wall. You can look at it on the floor. And in terms of how large you want to go with your photographs, then you could just cut out a piece of newspaper or craft paper to the size and put it around the artwork. So that's another way of doing it. And you can sort of reverse engineer it to, if you have digital photographs that you haven't printed out yet, you can sort of say, I want a 12 by 12 inch. Otherwise, if you do have photographs that you want to put on the wall, you could just simply put those on the floor next to everything else and play around with that and see how that looks as well.
I like that. Also, a thought crossed my mind just before when you mentioned millers, because not all photos were like, simple square or standard size. It probably is good to find out with whom you want to print them before you start arranging things. Is that something you do? Or, I mean, you probably go always with the same company, but if someone has never done that, would it be good to find a supplier first before diving in?
I highly recommend finding a supplier. I mean, there's so many suppliers now. It depends on where you are in the world. You don't have to come to a supplier in the US. So I do a internet search and find something close to you. Make sure, make sure that they have good reviews. Make sure that their quality is good. Honestly, I've ordered canvas print that is $10 and I get it because it's my business and I just want to see what is a $10 canvas print versus a $300 canvas print. And it holds up. I think the technology and printing has come such a long way that, it really does hold up. And you can't really go wrong. I mean, you're going to enjoy it no matter what, because it's going to be brand new. I think one of the things that I want to share is that if you are getting in Canvas print, make sure it's something that you're going to enjoy looking at for a long time. Otherwise, get a frame that you can switch out the photos, because you start actually getting a little bit sick of the same, or your children might be getting a little older, their teeth are coming in, they look different, and you might want to come up with a system where you are updating that photo every 6 months. So if you get like an 8-inch by 10-inch frame, you can easily get a print of that, either somewhere online where they can print it and, you can upload your photo and you can get it, or you can take it somewhere locally to get an 8 by 10 frame, and you can just keep updating that, because it's really
Right. So the
the
design is there, but then which ones maybe are going to be the ones that stay, and then which ones you're going to
that's
maybe
right.
update.
I really like that idea. That keeps it more interesting, because that's the thing. It can get boring over time.
It really, I mean, I did my family gallery wall, and in 4 months, I was like, I can't deal. I took it all down. And the thing is, the only one I kept up was our engagement photo. And and that's something that it's a special day, right? So your wedding is a special day, your engagement is a special day. There's certain markers in our life that are really, really special. Like my parents' wedding photo is on our mantle, because I just love that. They're going to be celebrating 65 years on Saturday.
Wow.
Congratulations to them. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. So it's really nice to be able to have certain things that are constant, but then, our tastes change, our lives change, and we want to be able to change that out. So think about that as well, right?
Can I ask also, in terms of material, I didn't quite catch what you said before when you mentioned Millis, what material it was, but these days you can print on wood, on glass, on metal, on whatever. Do you have a favorite, or is, metal, is that too heavy to go on the walls? Are there, are other things lighter and easier to mount, or do you have any favorites?
So if you do want to switch things out, don't do it on any other substrate other than a photograph, and get a frame where you could switch things out, right? So if you want to switch things out, get a frame. And there are frames that actually look frameless. They don't, you could just go take the photo to the edge. So that's my number one thing. My number two thing, if you do want to consider getting something printed on a substrate other than a photograph, metal does scratch. And I know metal is kind of hot right now, but it depends on the application. So if I have a client that is super contemporary and modern, and their house is very contemporary modern, and they like black and white photos, I tend to take those their black and white photos and print that on metal, where instead of white, the metal shows through. So that's just like, again, you kind of need to work with a designer to come up with like strategically what you would print what on, but I have also printed wedding photos on wood. I think that is really beautiful, when, especially a scenery shot, when it becomes like the warmth of the wood comes through the photograph.
Beautiful.
But a lot of metal prints now, they spray them with white, and then they basically put the artwork on there, which to me is like, I don't recommend that, because it scratches really easy. Metal basically scratches really easily. So I don't recommend that for anyone with kids.
Good. Fair. Unless you have it really high on that wall that you were designing.
Yeah. And speaking of high on the wall, one of the questions that we were going to talk about is, how high off the ground do you put artwork, right?
Yes.
And I think a good rule of thumb is the middle of the artwork is to about your eye level of a person who's 5'7". So you want to kind of, the middle of the artwork should be, I like my artwork a little shorter. I like it a little bit lower on the wall, but that's just me. but that's kind of a rule of thumb, is maybe 57 inches off the floor.
To start the bottom of the artwork?
Middle of the artwork.
The middle of the artwork is from 50. Okay. Of
So-
of the design, you mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
Right. Okay. Like
So-
as you'd laid it out where you showed us just before.
Yeah.
The middle of that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good rule.
Mhm.
Good rule of thumb. Now, was there anything else on the screen share you wanted to show us? Or was that...
I can, yeah. So let's say we can just quickly design a gallery wall together. Why don't
Okay.
we? So we could go over here and go into Canva and say create a design. Typically what I would do is hit a custom size. And let's say the wall that we're working with is 10 feet wide. By our floor to ceilings in the United States is typically 8 feet. So I'm just gonna click on inches over here and say 10 inches. So 1 inch equals 1 foot by 8 inches, right? So my canvas is going to be, this is my canvas. So
that's floor to ceiling wall.
Yep. And then let's say we have a couch. So I go into Canva and go under elements and I hit a couch, and I want to put the couch here, and this couch, there's no way that our couch is going to be 3 feet high. There's no way.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna
we
be
are
very
going
big.
to lower the couch to about, actually, let's say it's about yay high, right? 2.5 feet off the floor. Although that is probably too low. So we can go to 3 feet.
Okay.
So we'll say the couch is 3 feet. And maybe we have a little tree over here that's about, we go into the trees in under graphics, and we want to pick something. Of course, you're not going to have a pine tree in your house, but this is just for props.
Yep.
For designing
Yes.
purposes.
You got a pot plant of some kind.
Yes. So we'll say our tree is about 6 feet high. So 6'2". So we're going to do that. And now we can start designing. So we could say, okay, I want to put up my wedding photo. And I'm gonna hit wedding photo in here, and we'll just find someone's wedding photo in here. Wedding photography, and we'll go under photos, and we will click on wedding photos. Here we go. Let's say this is me and my husband, and I tend to put photos of people not so big, because then their head's going to be as big as, you know.
Okay.
But again, it all depends on how large it is. So this only is 1.5 feet wide, right? That's not very large. But let's say you want a 2 foot by 1.5 foot, right? So we go 2 foot by 1.5 foot, and that is our. And this is kind of like, and now you're kind of starting to see how it all works. And you say, you know, well, maybe we should put that lower, and we can put something else above it. Maybe we want to put, you know, another landscape above that, or maybe we want to put the landscape to the right and crop it in so we can have something to the right of it. And in terms of like how much space I give it, it really all depends on what else is around it, right?
Yeah.
As you see, this is how you start kind of working things out. So you lay out your canvas, you put your couch, measure your couch, or whatever else is on the floor, you know, if it's a cabinet or whatever it is. If you have any kind of plants, you know, put a fake plant in there, and then start designing and see what feels right to you. Maybe this is too much, you know, maybe you just want to have one thing, or maybe you want to have things that are square, 1.5 by 1.5, you know, and then you could say, I want 3 of those next to each other. And this way, we can sort of change the format. We can switch it out. Maybe we can frame it with 2 black and whites like that. And so these can match the couch while the color sort of gives it a pop of color.
And so are you centering it then to the couch?
I would center it to the couch in this instance, yes.
Right.
What I always struggle with when they are not the same size is I never know whether to align them on the top or the bottom or to center. I'm never sure what to do with that when they're not the same size.
Are you talking about when the photograph is not the same size, or
yeah, if that would be, you know, not the same height, for example, would you then align it to the bottom of the middle picture or to the upper line, the top?
So you're saying if the photograph is like
yes, yeah.
This one is like this, what do you do?
Yeah, yes.
I would tell you to play around, right?
Right.
So I'm going to stop sharing real quick. It is imperative that if you're doing this at home and you want to use your own photographs, you cut out a piece of paper, newspaper, preferably craft paper works best. So if you have those paper grocery bags that you can very carefully take apart and tape together, those can actually make nice large canvases. 3 or 4 of them taped together, you can make a pretty large canvas with that. And cut out what you want to see. So let's say you want to see what the 12 by 12 looks like. So cut out a bunch of 12 by 12s and just put them on the floor and see how that looks to you and how it feels for you. And then you could just tape them to the wall. Get some painter's tape and tape them to the wall and live with that. Just live with how far apart they're going to be, not necessarily their content, but just the frames themselves. So if you're going to get an 8 by 10-inch frame, you know, you cut the piece of paper and put it on the wall, and you're going to live with that for like a couple of days. You don't have to make the decision, but then you can go, oh, maybe we could put this large piece of memorabilia on to the right of it, and then we'll put a bunch of little things to the left of it. So a lot of design has to do with how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And it's not a science. It really is something that tugs at your heart and how you feel.
And just with white space, you mentioned that before, to have that white space, is that sort of like more is better, less is, like, again, personal taste? I know that's what you're going to say. But, there's a lot to be spoken for that white space as well.
I mean, listen, it depends on the client. So for example, where did my Joni go? This client, oops, I think I lost her. Oh, here we are. This is not a less is more client. This client was more, but she did have moved into a ginormous house. All her walls were white. Every piece of furniture was white. Literally her dining room chairs, her couch, her kitchen, everything in her house is white. Her bed, her bedding. So I felt comfortable dousing her pictures and her artwork. This was the view. This is an actual photograph of her bedroom. So I took an actual photograph of the bedroom and I measured it. And this is exactly what we ended up doing. This is an actual photograph of her wedding that I had reframed. And then we ended up getting from Miller's, the hardbacked. And then, you know, this was another wall that we did in her living room, right? And then this is a picture of that wall. And this wall continues to the left. It keeps on going. Oh, here it is. Keeps on going. So she loved it, but she doesn't have anything else on the wall. I would never do this in a house, well, A, that has children, and
Yeah.
and B, if the house is full of other things and other art and other
Yeah.
memorabilia, right?
Mm,
It just wouldn't make sense. You'd go crazy. It's like you don't know where your eyes gonna go,
mm.
right? And then this is also in her bedroom. This goes across from her bed, and she just wanted to look at pictures of her husband. I chose this photo because even though it was really pixelated, I am just so in love with this photo. And she's so photogenic, you know,
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
really is stunning. She was a Coco Chanel model.
I was going to say she looks like a film star.
She really does look
Gorgeous.
like
Beautiful.
a monster.
Yeah.
And then this, so just so you know, like this is a photograph of what was finished. And then they said, can you do a family wall here? So we did a family wall here. And so this is just the design. You see that? You
Oh,
know,
yeah. But that's in the
I-
house. Yep.
it's in the house. So this is how I show my clients. This is what I
What it's
recommend.
going to look like. Yeah, nice.
I love
I
how
did,
you incorporated that light switch there. It's perfect.
yeah. It's pretty good. And do you guys see how flat this lays on the wall? It's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
it really goes right against the wall. And then this was another photo. And then these would have been framed art because they're much larger. And
Okay.
I love this photo so much. So so
That's
basically
great.
you just play around. I mean, this to me, this is way too many photos because
Mm, mm.
like your eye, which one is your eye gonna look at? But they really wanted this.
And that's the thing. There's no right or wrong. It is definitely a personal taste.
It really
And with
is.
and with those older photos like that, they are, your favorites out of, hundreds of photos, say. So yeah, they're the ones that that obviously made that decision. And that's the thing, as we're going through our photos, we find those ones that one photo captures, a really particular time within our life. So
That's
they're
right.
they're great
Mhm.
to display. Well, thank you so much. That has been so helpful, and just so, yeah, inspirational just to see the options. And I love that to be able to show us in Canva how you can take the actual photos. And I love also that we can just play around with those designs on the floor and imagine that. Yeah, really good ideas. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And it really helps once you do the pieces of paper. Don't throw those pieces of paper out because what you could do is measure the back of the frames that you end up getting, and you could poke a hole in those pieces of paper, and then you can put your nails through that. So that is going to be a reference point all the way up to the install point. So those pieces of paper that I mentioned are really, really important for installation purposes.
Wow.
Fantastic idea. Brilliant.
It
I
is.
never thought of that. I love it. So you can tape it to the wall, and then when you're happy with your layout, put your little nail hole in the middle.
That's right.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Very practical tips. Thank you so much, Haleh.
Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure. And look, listeners or watchers, we really encourage you to watch that one over on YouTube because Haleh shared the screen, and you need to see it to. We will have the stills as well for those who don't want to go on YouTube or can't, but we'd encourage you to do that and to enjoy the video. So thanks again, Haleh,
Welcome.
for joining us, and listeners and watchers. We'd also, as always, encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. Hop over to our webpage where you can do that. And if you do have wishes for future episodes, questions, topics that we haven't covered yet, and that we or an expert might be able to answer, please let us know. We've got a link to a wish list where you can leave us a note and write down your wishes for us. And, you know, obviously we always love feedback and a good review, and just share with your friends if you feel like they've got photos too and they might be interested to hear us talk about all these topics and to hear from our experts like today. So yeah, and this is me, Chantal from Photos in Order. Thanks, Haleh, again. And we'll share Haleh's links, by the way, in the show notes. Check out her website and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And was there something else that you had to offer as well, Haleh, that you wanted to share?
I just wanted to let listeners and viewers know that if you get overwhelmed, I'm here to help. I have clients globally. I have clients all over Europe, all over the United States, and I can help you design your gallery wall virtually. And I have designed a 7-step process on how to organize your photos. And if you want to sign up, I'm sure you ladies will put that into the show notes on how to sign up for that.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll definitely put the links in. Thank you. Well, thanks again for today. Thanks, Chantal. Thanks, Haleh. It was just been really lovely chatting about this great topic of actually enjoying our photos and having this as a creative way to do so. So thanks again. And yeah, I'm Fiona from Photo Helper, and happy organizing and happy displaying of your photos. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.